All right, so I need to talk about something that has been weighing on my mind and something that I'm actually seeing more of because a lot of people are seeking out these like gotcha moments. And I keep seeing young people, really talented, hardworking young people circling the drain of doom scrolling. Every other video, it's about the layoffs. Every other post is about how the job market is cooked, how AI is taking all the entry-level positions, and how it's impossible to get ahead. And I know I have videos about layoffs and AI, but the thing is, some of that is actually true. The unemployment rate, especially like for younger workers, I was reading that it hit 10.8% in July of 2025. I know we don't have like any new numbers right now because of the whole shutdown, but that is the highest that it has been in over a decade outside of the pandemic. And although there is a bubble in AI, it is legitimately displacing entry-level workers in tech and customer service roles. The cost of living it's outpacing wage growth. And yes, it is hard out there. I am not going to gaslight you and pretend everything is fine, but I am also not going to let you believe that you are doomed. And as someone who is Gen X and has 3 Gen Z boys, I am also a healthcare professional who built and I exited a business. And I was raised with food insecurity, and statistically, having been raised by a single mother, I was not supposed to reach the financial stability that I have today. This was not by some viral TikTok strategy or crypto moonshot, because ultimately those didn't exist anyway, but by understanding how to actually create value when times are tough. So today, I actually want to give you something different than what you're seeing in your feed. Not toxic positivity, not just work harder advice, but real actionable strategies that actually work when the traditional path isn't available. And here's the thing, for my older viewers, I need you to stay with me too, because at the end of this, I am going to challenge you to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And if you want to jump straight to the action steps, I'm sure I'm going to be putting in timestamps in the description, but I really encourage you to stick with me through this context, because understanding why these strategies work will help you implement them better. Now let's actually talk about the numbers. Yes, they're real. You're probably already aware that when it comes to young people, what they're facing right now, I want the older generation watching this to understand this isn't about work ethic. This is about systemic shifts. And according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, youth unemployment in July 2025, as I was saying, 10.8%. This is what I was reading, up 9.8%. Ooh, there's like a rabbit over there, right near my dog. She is not even, oh, there she goes. So anyway, there is 2.5 million young people aged 16 to 24 who want to work, but they can't find jobs. And here's the thing. I know 16 to 24. I remember the grind. It was a hustle. Yes. I remember telling my oldest son, though, this last year, this was like what I was telling him. When he was coming home from college for the summer, he already had a job lined up that he's been working this job for several years. And it's a great gig, working in a summer camp. I loved working in summer camps, but he actually wanted to stretch a little bit, and I applaud that. I totally do. But I also told him he could try to stretch while he accepted this position and that he already had the offer for. And in the end, he was so thankful, because many of his friends only found like less than part-time work. And a lot of them spent the first several weeks of their summer break trying to find work. And what I'm always telling my kids as well is that doom scroll. So here's actually what happens when you're job hunting in this environment. You see everyone else's rejections. You see people saying your entire generation is completely cooked. The algorithm loves negativity. It feeds you more of what keeps you scrolling. So you end up in this echo chamber where it feels like there's no way out. That's probably like why my content doesn't really work as well. So the handful of you that are here, I am so grateful for your time and I am rooting for you. But I get this message from young people quite a bit, and they are working their butts off. They're going to school, they're working part-time, and they're learning skills, and they're exhausted and they're demoralized because they keep hearing that they're lazy or entitled or that they have already lost. And I want to be clear here. The data does not support the narrative that young people aren't working hard. The data always shows that the economic landscape has pretty much fundamentally shifted, as we know. And again, we have more and more centimillionaires and billionaires trying to make the decisions. And as much as you want to say, well, yeah, those are the ones that are, employing us, Well, guess what? Those are the ones that are also laying us off as well. So just keep that in mind. Now, as far as where I've been, I have mentioned 2008. I saw the impact of the recession up close. People were losing their jobs and moving into anything that paid. I mean, six-figure salaries with bonuses back to minimum wage jobs. I saw people lose their homes, and the neighborhood that we actually live in, I remember walking around seeing homes that were basically abandoned, like they were being built, but they weren't finished, and people just kind of walked off the site. Homes that were abandoned and people just left the keys on the counter and they were out, they bounced. And so that's the thing, like we were in that crisis and fortunately we were able to manage it. But after moving back to Colorado, because my wife, she ended up getting a job offer here, I left a stable job and out of necessity, I had to get creative. And the thing is, nurses don't typically go out on their own in business, but I had built a skill set that was more than just being a nurse. So when the crisis hit and the cutbacks landed, but like the work, it still needed to get done, I reached out to my network and I found a way to help organizations that served individuals with high medical needs and provide that care within a community setting. So this wasn't like in a clinical setting. So they actually required this care and a licensed professional to be in charge of it or to actually provide it. And I was able to provide this on a contract basis and started building out one service until I got really good at that. I got to a point of building out other verticals, which included tech and then cloud-based systems, which is something that I was also starting to get experienced in and very interested in. Now, holy smokes, there's like squirrels going nuts in that tree. But I contracted with them and I built out teams and I took that calculated risk and it paid off. I had clinical expertise, I had tech experience, and businesses were in crisis mode. They needed solutions, but couldn't afford to expand their payroll. But I was able to actually take that on. So I started that service-based business during one of the worst recessions in modern history. And the service business model, which I think is like great, what I learned is when times are tough, businesses and individuals still have problems that need solving. They just can't afford traditional solutions. And I provided clinical consulting and helped build out electronic health record systems and cloud infrastructure. And I also help patients with chronic conditions and help them navigate the healthcare system. I was solving real problems and problems that didn't go away just because the economy tanked. This is actually the key insight that I want you to grab onto when it comes to recession-proof businesses solving essential problems or helping people save money. But I was actually doing both. Healthcare doesn't stop in a recession. Technology adoption doesn't pause, but companies can't hire full time when they're uncertain about the future. But that's actually where service providers like freelancers, consultants, specialists, and this even includes the trades. I am not forgetting about you, especially the trades. This is actually where you come in. So you got to position your advantage here. And here's actually what happened. This positioned me for massive success. When the economy recovered, I had already built relationships with organizations. I had already proven my value. I had built a skill set that were like all of these skill sets that were in even higher demand as technology continued to advance. And when businesses actually started growing again, I was already trusted. I was already inside the door. That business eventually led to an exit that changed my entire trajectory. And I am not telling you this to brag. I am telling you this because I want you to understand starting when things are hard gives you competitive advantages that people who start during boom years, those times, they never really get that. Now, you know I got to get into the mindset shift aspect. So you have got to get out of the doom scroll. I know it's tempting. I know that the algorithm keeps serving you up. It keeps pushing it. I know it feels validating to see other people struggling too. But here's actually what's happening to your brain. Every time you consume that content, you're reinforcing neural pathways that tell you that there is no point in trying. You're literally rewiring yourself for helplessness. I mean, learned helplessness. Surround yourself with people and an environment that shapes your financial behavior more than your willpower. If you're surrounding yourself, even digitally, with people who are convinced there is no opportunity, you will start to believe there is no opportunity. So here is your first action item. I would love to hear that you're auditing your feeds. Unfollow the doom. Follow people who are actually building things, solving problems, and creating value. Not the toxic positivity crowd, the people doing real work and showing real results. And the second mindset shift, I think we're on the second. I gotta take notes here, but recessions create opportunities. Some of the most successful companies in history were started during the downturns. Airbnb, although I know that definitely, it's questionable right now, but Uber, WhatsApp, Slack, these are companies that I followed, and Slack, founded when the previous company had failed in 2009, and these are tools that I had been using, services I had been using. But why is because when things are hard, people are you know what? They're more willing to try new solutions, more focused on value and cost savings, more open to taking risks on unproven options if they actually solve a real problem. And the thing is that the traditional paths might be blocked, but that just means there's less competition on the alternative paths. Long-term thinking wins here. And third, the third mindset. This is actually a marathon. It is not a sprint. You have to extend your timeline. Stop thinking that you need to be a millionaire by 25. I know social media makes it look like everyone's rich at 22. They are not. What you're seeing is survivorship bias and just straight up lies. The real wealth builders that I know, they spent their 20s sharpening their skills, building relationships, making smart decisions with small amounts of money, even into their 30s. They didn't pop off until maybe later in their 30s or 40s. You have time, use it wisely. And I think, all right, so moving into the strategies, you have to master a high income skill even while working your current job. And here's where I see data that I've been reading. Service-based businesses are recession resistant. Freelancing, I've talked about, consulting, specialized skills, these thrive when companies can't afford full-time hires. And yes, again, they're trades. Now, I know some of the options that you've heard out there are some of the same, when it comes to video editing and content creation. Here's the thing, I know kids in high school right now editing videos for bigger creators, and they're doing a hell of a lot better than I did mowing lawns when I was their age. They are leveraging their skill set. Now, virtual assistants, with specialized knowledge, that was one of my first hires in my business, was a virtual assistant. And she helped me completely level up, almost immediately. Healthcare consultation, that's my niche, financial planning and bookkeeping. If you're tech savvy, IT support, cybersecurity, here's the thing. I initially hired these as contractors in my own business when I was still building out that specific vertical. But let me also tell you about this story, this experience that I had with this guy pretty much in our vicinity that was looking to make some extra money in the evenings and the weekends to help cover some additional expenses. And I actually hired this guy because at the time my kids were much younger. I was building more than one business and vertical at that time. And I had less than zero free time for this service. So this guy who was in the corporate space during the day, he ended up buying a cheap trailer and hooked it onto his, I think it was a Mazda CX-9 or something. I think that's what it was, some SUV. And he already had a large air compressor, and he spent a lot of time working on his own sprinkler system and really learned some skills. So he started going around to the neighborhood here, and he was blowing out people's sprinklers in the fall. And he started with that one service. And I saw him trying to book a bunch of us in the neighborhood, and he could literally park on one side of the street and hit 2 yards pretty quickly because the way our sprinkler systems were set up in each yard. And then he'd bounce across the street and do the other 2 yards, and then he'd just go down the street. And I will say, I actually do this myself now because I actually have the time and I do have the equipment. But I saw that guy a couple years ago, and I still see him to this day. And he is not pulling a trailer with his SUV. This guy has company vehicles. He has got a team that is actually working for him. He still provides that service, but he also does repairs. He sets up new systems and also does landscaping and I think snow removal. So this is just one of the many examples that I can actually share with you. And here is actually what you can do while working your current job. So you got to pick one skill, not 5. one. The one that aligns with either what you're already doing, what you already know, or what generally interests you. And then you have to commit at least 90 days of focused learning, 1 hour every day. Every day. It could be YouTube, Coursera, Udemy, free resources. They're everywhere. You do not need to spend thousands of dollars on a boot camp. And building a portfolio. So you got to do free or cheap work for like 3 to 5 people. Yes, I know I said the word free. I'm not devaluing your time. You're learning and getting testimonials. So you will start charging, and you'll start low if you need to, but start. $500 for a particular project, then $750, then $1,000. You'll be amazed at how fast you can scale when you're actually good. I also heavily outbid my consulting services as a nurse, like initially when those days were lean, but I eventually scaled to a substantial amount after getting that experience and building my worth. And trust me, once I was making those companies money and they knew me, like once those contracts were renegotiated and those prices went up, they didn't mind paying it because, again, I had already proved myself. So you've got to treat this like a business, not a side hustle, even if it's 5 to 10 hours a week at first. Have systems, deliver on time, communicate professionally, build your reputation. You will start building a network that opens even bigger and more doors. But strategy 2, are we on strategy 2? I think we're on strategy 2. So build strategic relationships, not transactional networking. But here's where most people get this wrong when it comes to networking. They treat it like collecting business cards. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about genuine relationships with people who are where you want to be. And you need to try to do this without being weird. So you got to provide value first. So don't lead with, well, can you help me? Lead with, well, hey, I noticed that you're working on X. So I actually have experience in Y. Would it be helpful if I put together a brief analysis? And here's the thing. I have met so many people where they had a problem. Sometimes it was just a conversation that I was able to solve that problem with them. I didn't need to come up with a brief or some analysis. Like, I was able to help them right then and there. Join communities where ambitious people gather, not networking events, actual communities, online forums, masterminds, local business groups, volunteer organizations, industry associations. Please, wherever you are, wherever you're working alongside people, not just trading contact info. And I also see people, you've got to be genuinely interested in their story. I talk to so many people who I ask them like a follow-up on like something that's happened in their life or something that's happened in their business. And they're like, oh my God, how did you remember that? It's because I took a genuine interest about that. People who are successful love talking about how they got there. Ask those questions and learn. Take notes. I mean, bring a pen and notebook, whatever it is, take some notes and apply what you learned. Stay in touch with them too consistently. I'm not talking about like every day. I get it. We're all busy, but don't disappear for 6 months. Share relevant articles with them. Just a quick text. Just, hey, hope things are going well. Congratulate them on wins. Check in periodically. Now, the same principle applies to your career and your wealth building. So strategy 3, I'm losing count of the strategies here, but invest something. Even if it's just a tiny bit. I know what you're thinking. I have nothing to invest. I'm barely covering rent. And I hear you. I said that. I hear you. And if you're genuinely in survival mode, your food, your shelter, your utilities, like all of those bills, your focus, here's the thing, needs to be on income first. Full stop. I'm not talking about just like cutting back like the small things. I'm talking about how like building those skills to build the income. When you see small growth, I understand that it is not life-changing money, but here's what is life-changing. You have proven to yourself that investing works. You built the habit of paying yourself first. You started to see yourself as an investor, not just a consumer. You learned how markets move without risking money that you didn't really need. So when you get your first raise, your first client payment, your first bonus that you already have that infrastructure in place and you have built that habit and you're able to scale up from there. You won't be starting from zero without decision paralysis. So it's the micro investment strategy. You got to open that brokerage account, Fidelity, Vanguard, Charles Schwab, doesn't matter. As long as you can actually do fractional shares, because again, you're only going to have a few bucks. Set up the auto invest, whatever you can, genuinely afford, like $5, $25 a month, something. Put in a broad index fund. So S&P 500 fund, total stock market fund. Don't try to like pick individual stocks right now, especially when you're first starting out. And do not check it every day. It's supposed to like grow over time. I mean, decades. When I say time, decades, not days. And you got to increase it with every income jump. So if you got a raise, get it in there. Increase your auto investment. New client, increase it. Tax refund, put a little bit of that in there. And your fourth strategy, I would say, would be to start a recession-proof service-based business. Based on my research and my personal experience, here are the characteristics I think that work in tough times. They solve essential problems. So I mentioned the healthcare services, home repairs and maintenance, auto repair. Have you seen the videos out there about the mobile repair out there, just starting with like the oil changes or simple, like minor things that people just don't have time or the resources to do. And then some of these folks are actually starting their own shops. But like I said, you could just start even your auto repair on a mobile level here. If you've got some, IT support experience, think about that. Financial planning, childcare. I mean, you could be watching people's kids. All right, had to wait for another plane to fly over, but service-based businesses that help people save money can be bookkeeping, it can be accounting, efficiency consulting. So here's the thing. This is something that I do. I do not advertise it. You will not be able to find like a calendar or anything like that. These are people that reach out to me. I will look at their financials. I will kind of look at their overhead. I will look at their process, and I will help them streamline because this is based on some experience. I don't advertise it. It's just people that reach out to me who know me. That is part of my network. They're like, you know what? You actually need to call this guy. He can help you out. And that's what happens. Now, there's also like DIY education. Like you could be that person. The thing with service-based businesses is that they have low overhead and you've got minimal equipment required and you can start from home, which is what I did. They can scale with demand and you can raise prices as you improve. And if you want to test this business idea, identify a problem that you can solve. What do people around you struggle with? What do you have experience with? Where is that intersection? And talking to like 10 potential customers. Before you build anything, just like conversations. I'm thinking about offering X. Would you find value in that? And what do you think you would pay for that? And create a simple offer. Don't like overcomplicate it. I will do X for Y people in Z time frame for X amount of dollars. And just get your first 3 paying customers, even if it's discounted, even if it's people that you know. You need proof of concept. Is this something that you actually want to do? And is it a service that you can do? So deliver exceptional results. Always over deliver on these first few. I mean, always over deliver, period. But you got to get those testimonials and you got to ask for referrals. And then you can actually refine and scale. So you learn what works, you systemize it, and then you raise your prices, you market more confidently. And the beautiful thing about a service-based business is that your startup costs, they're nearly zero or very, like I said, very minimal, using what you have here and maybe like what you have around your home to be able to provide the service. A website is like $10 a month. I mean, yes, you have to build it out, but still like the hosting of it. Your skills are your inventory. Your time is your investment. And strategy 5, I think, what we're on, you got to protect your mental health and your energy because this one might seem soft, but it is actually the most important. You're going to burn out and like none of the other strategies matter if you do that. You got to be sustainable. You got to set boundaries with like doom content. And I mean, seriously, delete the apps if you need to, use screen time limits, protect your mindset. And you got to celebrate the small wins. And if you applied to 10 jobs today, I know that's probably defeating, but that's a win. You finished a course or a module, that is a win. You made $50 from your side project, win. Build a support system like friends who are also building things. Because you're going to start doubting yourself. You need to surround your people who believe in you and take care of your physical health. You can't out hustle a terrible diet and zero sleep. I say this as a healthcare professional and as someone who invests in my health. Your body is a foundation for everything else. And you've got to also remember your why. You got to write down, like, why are you doing this? Write it down. Look at it when things get tough because you're not going to get like rich like right away. You're going to like be building a life where you have options, where you can help your family, where you're not stressed about money, and where you can actually start to be generous when you do get to that point. All right, now I need to talk to the older folks who are still watching, and I've been on the receiving end of the young people are lazy conversation. I have heard that back in my day stories. I have seen the comments on social media dismissing an entire generation, and I need you to stop, because the data, it's actually showing us something different. This generation is working hard. They're educated, they're tech savvy, they're entrepreneurial. I realize there is definitely some nuance, but they are changing the way work is happening. But what they're facing is higher housing costs that are relative pretty much like to their like deflated wages that any generation before them has had. You got more student loan debt because, you know, college is of course the promise, I guess, and a job market that has disrupted, and yes, it's in a bubble, but AI and automation has definitely disrupted it. And wages that haven't even kept pace based on the productivity that is happening right now in the aftermath of multiple economic crises in their formative years. So when you dismiss them as lazy, you're not being tough. Like, I get the whole participation trophy thing. I totally understand what you're talking about, but you're not teaching them a lesson. You're being cruel and actually wrong. So, and like I said, I know Gen X, we're tough. Like, I get it. But what we can actually do here is try to like meet with someone, like seriously, like try to find like a younger person like in your sphere and just take them out for a coffee. Just try to like answer their questions, introduce them to people like in your network. This costs you almost like next to nothing and could change their trajectory. And also consider like hiring younger people for projects. And this is not supposed to be ageist at all. Like, if you have a business and you're in a position to like recommend like contractors, consider hiring like a younger freelancer. So let's say that there's like digital marketing or even like the video stuff or social media stuff that you need help with. Well, they probably have that skill set. So why not bring them in, but pay them fairly as well? Share some realistic advice, not just like work harder, actual advice. How did you get your break? Who helped you with it? Or how did you get help? Where did you seek like advice from? What skills mattered most? And what do you wish that you had known at my age? Try to just defend them. Like, when I know this is tough, but like when somebody at the office or like in your friend group kind of starts with the kids these days nonsense, I mean, just try to be an advocate. We are not in competition with each other. We are literally on the same team. So the real message here that I need to like leave you with is I am not going to lie to you to say that this is going to be easy. It is not. Finding a job in this environment, it is hard. Starting a business is hard. Learning new skills takes time. Building relationships requires a lot of patience. Investing in like what little you have, almost like next to nothing, feels impossible. But here's what I know from personal experience, and this is like from decades of watching people succeed in tough circumstances. The people who win aren't the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who refuse to give up when it was like as hard as it was. I started a business during a recession with a family that I needed to help support. There was a sense of urgency, yes, for the immediate need, for sure. But I also saw the problem that I could solve that would keep paying me for years. You can do the same thing. This is not overnight. This is not with some viral hack, but consistently, strategically, with focus, and definitely some determination. And what gives me hope for you, like, you want to know like what gives me hope, is that I see a lot of young people out there. They're starting online businesses, they're building personal brands. I see communities forming online where people share knowledge freely. I see generational wealth gaps, I'm hoping, that are starting to kind of close up, being closed by education and access to information. I see my own kids, my Gen Z boys, who are thoughtful, they're ambitious, and emotionally intelligent. The generation isn't failing. The system is shifting. And the people who recognize this and they're going to adapt are going to be the ones who thrive. You're not entitled to success, but you're also not doomed to failure. The path is there. It's just not the path that previous generations took. So stop doom scrolling, stop comparing yourself to fake internet wealth, start building, start learning, start connecting with people who lift you up. Your future self will thank you for starting today instead of waiting for some perfect condition. I would love to hear from you. Please drop a comment. What is one action that you're going to be taking this week? And if you're older, what is one way that you're going to do to support that younger person that is in your sphere? But hey, I got to get out of here. The planes are still flying around, so and I need to check in on something. So I will catch you right back here on your next level up.